In this video I'm going to build the Meng 132 Fokker DR1 triplane, as flown by Manfred von Richthofen in April 1918. I've selected some aftermarket goodies like this Copper State Models resin crewman, some Gas Patch Models parts and Quinta Studios 3D decals. Okay then, let's set out all the tools and equipment we're going to need for this exciting build. No point wasting time, let's get into it. Hang on a minute, this isn't a tank or armoured vehicle, and it's been 30 years since I built an aircraft model. I need to do some research. First step is going to be the Wingnut Wings website to get some excellent reference images. I think every scale modeler knows that Wingnut Wings are second to none when it comes to World War I model aircraft and the research they put into every design. The next step is to confirm what colour the internal framing was. I'm going to build a specific serialised plane and its manufacturing run had black painted framing. Right, let's look over the kit instructions. It's well known that this kit was developed by Wingnut Wings and was actually the kit they were working on trying to release at the time they shut their doors. Meng managed to make a deal to pick up the tooling and release the kit as best they could. However, there are a few things that they changed or did not include. The instruction book certainly isn't Wingnut Wings quality. That's a little disappointing. It does fit in line with the rest of Meng's instruction kits, but you would certainly like to have had the detail you get from Wingnut Wings. It lacks all of the technical notes and reference materials, and in some places is a little confusing. We do get 4 excellent colour options, including serial 425-17, which is Richthofen's plane, the plane which I'm going to build. The paint guide, however, is next to useless and I wouldn't even bother referencing it. And let's do a quick review on the parts themselves. As an armour modeler, I'm used to getting really good quality kits these days, but the texture that's on these wings is phenomenal. You can feel the linen, which is stretched out over the framework. You can feel the ribs on each of the wings. The detail is exceptionally crisp. And then when we turn over to the other side, there's just no injector pin marks anywhere. Correction, there is a couple on the inside of the fuselage, but they're well out of a visible line. But the wings, they're just beautifully made. You can see why Wingnut Wings had such a reputation for the quality of the kits that they were manufacturing. Here, again, the doped linen texture on here is superb. Looking through the rest of the parts, there just isn't injector pin marks anywhere that's going to be visible on this kit. There's no work required with that. And the detail here is really crisp. The plastic they've used, a little bit soft, but it's really held the detail very well. Obviously the timing that they've come up with to pull the sprues out of the tooling moulds is well engineered. Fantastic detail. I have to say, as an armour modeler, I'm used to seeing fantastic detail out of modern kits. This kit is no exception. I can see why aircraft modelers have really fallen in love with these. Great detail. So here we have the engine sprue. Again, brilliant detail. The fins on those are crisp, no flash. That's going to be a joy to work with and spend a lot of time detailing up. That's superb work. Clear sprue. Again, crystal clear, no marks, no bubbles, nothing. It's just beautifully constructed. Well done. The decals, I'm probably going to use some of these and they're quite good. They're definitely Meng quality, I can see. Not made by Cartograph, of course, and some good options in there for late war. A little bit of PE for this kit. We're going to move on now to a book. A reference book which I've recently acquired, which covers all the variants of the Fokker F1 and DR1 in great detail. So some really great reference material in here. In fact, one of the co-authors of this book was the general manager of Wingnut Wings, and there's an article in this book where he describes the work that they went through to design and develop the DR1 kit and where it was at and why Meng took it on and the changes that they made. Great research, great book. So let's get into it. So first thing we need to do is the cockpit. So I put a base layer paint down and now it's time to detail some of those parts. in here I'm just going to pick up by brush painting the framework. Of course they're black as I described earlier, and this is the rear bulkhead behind the pilot's seat. One of the side frames, I'm just going to work on putting the linen colour over the top of the linen wrap that goes across the top of the framework here, where the pilot would be resting his arms or grabbing that to climb in and out of the cockpit. So the detail in these is really clear and crisp. And as I start using some oils here to work through the paint and bring up some of the detail, I'm quite mindful of the fact that all of these areas that will be visible once the kit has been made really have an opportunity here to show them to the best of our ability. So this is where a modeler gets to show off their skills. So colour wise, on this linen panel here, I'm just going to use a bit of Industrial Earth 502 Abteilung oil colour. It's got a olive green tint to it, which I've chosen because these planes and their rotary engines, you often use castor oil as the lubricant. And castor oil tends to have a golden colour to it. And as it discolours with dirt and dust, it does seem to turn a olivey green colour. So I've worn that in because that panel most definitely gets some overspray as it moves backwards past the pilot. The pilot's seat in the Fokker DR1 is an aluminium rolled panel, which is then covered in leather. So I'll put the base colour down on here, a little scratch work and a semi-transparent varnish over the top of that. I'm going to start putting this kit together now. So the aluminium bins that hold the ammunition and the rudder pedal there, we're just going to join one of the side frame panels. And you'll see on these frame panels I've added some detail with the bracing wires and turnbuckles. These turnbuckles come out of the gas patch parts which I've bored in. Adds a great amount of detail which will be visible when this is closed up. Floor panel, I put some additional staining into the bottom of that. Not too heavy because most of that is coming from off the boots of the pilot and a little bit of maintenance oil or similar maintenance crew might have splashed in there. So we just want to add a little bit of that detail in there without overdoing it too much. Start joining these panels in together and you'll see once they're all joined together there's the cockpit. Quite a bit of work to actually get this together, and there's a lot of detail in here that anyone can really add to this and make a fantastic aircraft. The pilot figure is next. Now getting 132 scale resin figures for a seated pilot's not necessarily that easy for a World War I subject, so I actually had to get a German Gotha bomber crewman, and I'm going to very heavily modify this figure. I can see here that the legs really are just a touch long. It's pushing the figure up in the seat, and I'm going to have to shave some off the waistline as you see here. Now this particular area won't be visible once the figure is seated into the aircraft. His clothing is all dark, so he has dark fabric pants and a leather flight jacket. Much of the detail we're going to add in here is not going to stand out and be highly visible. The amount of modification I had to do meant that the parts didn't join together well. I'm going to use some Tamiya epoxy putty to gap fill. Normally what I do is I use a craft blade, I push the epoxy putty firmly into the joint, remove the excess material, and then move around the figure to do that. And you get about 30 minutes work time with Tamiya epoxy putty. So that gives me about 30 minutes to go around and get this pushed into all the gaps that are in the figure, and then come back. And I usually just dip the blade into a bit of water just to make sure that it will smoothly move over that epoxy putty, and then re-sculpt the folds and seams into the figure itself. So here I'm just pushing that epoxy putty into the elbow where I've had to adjust the elbow. And then the next step is to start the painting process. Using the zenithal lighting process, I first paint the figure in black primer, then spray a heavily thinned coat of Tamiya XF2 flat white from directly above the figure. Now this produces all the visible highlights that's going to be required. I like to use glazes because I can sneak up on the opacity that I want. Probably takes 3, 4 or even 5 coats if it's a dark colour to get the depth of opacity that I'm looking for. Coming back to aircraft modelling after 30 years of armour modelling is certainly thrilling for me. I'm revisiting a subject that 35 years ago I attempted to make with a Revell kit. Now it's a Wingnut Wings equivalent kit. It's certainly very different now. The detail in this kit is superb and I truly hope my skills can do it justice. So please, comment down below if you'd like to make fun of an armour modeller trying to build an aircraft, because I welcome all comments. But seriously, I think this video series is going to demonstrate that all of us can tackle subjects across different genres, that skills can be truly transferable. I'd also like to thank all my Patreon members like Angus Matthews, who takes advantage of the fact that I'll support my patrons with their build projects and we often talk about what he's working on. You too can access this support for a small monthly membership fee, so please consider joining my Patreon and take up the opportunity to talk modelling.